Now, some cool social media facts. Social media can be used to showcase your personality and your identity. Small businesses rely on word of mouth that can be manifested through social media. Basically, what that means is somebody can see you and fall in love with you before they ever meet you. They can literally look into your eyes and say, she looks awesome, or he looks like the coolest guy ever. And that is really important. You create emotional connections to people before you physically meet them, which is really important. Now, a website in this industry is absolutely necessary. Blogging formats are really popular. When I started 13 years ago, I went to buy my first website, to build my first website. My price ranges were anywhere between $13,000 and $20,000 to build a website 13 years ago. I picked the $13,000 one because it seemed more economical. It was the worst mistake of my life because, 12, 13 years ago, you had to pay a programmer every time you wanted to change a word in your website. So pretty much I put a website up for $13,000 and it sat for 8 years, never changed an image, never made a single change on it because I couldn't afford to, and I was too frustrated. Eventually now you look at the blogging formats and the companies that are out there. We have a website, we used PhotoBiz, and oh my gosh, they rock. I have to send a shout out for them because we literally, I was talking to them on the phone. I just met these guys and fell in love with them because we were we're discussing websites. And I said, all right, I'll tell you what. He said he could have a website up for me in a half a day. And I said, yeah, right, because I've had horrible experiences. And so they said, we'll call you Monday. Monday at 11, my staff went to lunch at 12:30. They walked back in the room. I said, we're putting up a website today. We built our senior website before 4:30 at night. We had the entire thing done with videos, everything. So I thought that was absolutely amazing. We are working on now replacing all of the websites. But to be able to do an entire website with multimedia presentations in less than 4 hours is breathtaking. So it's absolutely doable. Anybody can. We also just put up this site. This is the other one was sandypuchphotography.com. If you want to go there, don't crash it. We're working on it. This is sandypuch.com. This one is actually more the teaching and the touring and all of our things that way. But little by little, we're changing the sites. We started this one on Monday, and by Wednesday, it's almost done. And this one has links to all of our gear pages and our equipment, everything I use. This is a lot more intense, and it was a few days. So there's no excuse not to have one, and thank you, PhotoBiz, for making it happen for us because it was great. Facts. Functionality is the most important thing when it comes to building a website. Use icons for navigation rather than simple text. People get pictures. See a little blue bird? You know what you're doing with it, right? You see a little blue F? You know what it is. It's easy for people to navigate that way. Current design trends are minimal. That means clean, space, not a lot of words. If you have a lot of copy and words on your website, you're making a mistake. They don't want to read about you, and they will leave your site if that's the case. Start with a good homepage and include things such as who you are and why people should trust you. This is a huge pet peeve. It's a baby soapbox because when I go to your website, we do in-studio workshops, which are awesome, but before I meet you, I'm going to require two things, your price list and your website. I will look at your price list first because your price list tells me what you think you're worth. I will go to your website and I can tell you what I think you're worth as far as how they relate to each other. If I go to your website, one of the very first places I'm going to go is the About Me page or About Us or however you word it. I'm going to go there. When I click on that, if your picture doesn't come up, your personal face does not come up, and a bio, a story, a personal letter, something that will connect me to you, I'm going to be kind of frustrated with you and come find you because to me that is your first opportunity for people to actually meet you. For them to look you in the eyes and say, I love her story. He looks like he's so much fun. And that's how they're going to relate to you. More so than your pictures and everything else, we are selling ourselves, not products. And so this is your first opportunity to do that. Now, you need to avoid cluttered designs that overwhelm the readers, graphics and flash that are too slow to load. This was actually, I could take this out now because, well, I shouldn't take it out, but honestly, and this is truly not a plug for them, although I love them, this is not even an issue anymore. Flash is a problem. Like, let me give you an example. Right now, there is a consumer out there sitting in a doctor's office waiting for their child on their iPad going, oh, I have got to get my daughter's pictures taken. She goes to her iPad, and let's say she Googles, in my case, photographer, Littleton, Colorado, baby. She's looking for a baby photographer. Well, if I did my job right, then my name should come up pretty quick, right? We want it to come up at the top. So I'm the top photographer, let's say. She goes, oh, okay, clicks on it. Now she goes to my site. If she gets that bar that says 5%, 10%, 18%, 20%, about 20% statistically, guess what she's gonna do?
Go back.
She's gonna hit the back button and she's gonna go to the next photographer in line. So my question to all of you is, how many of you have checked your websites? Most of us think we have fast websites because on your own computer, understand that computers memorize URLs. So once you go to your site, it might do that the first time, and then the next time you go there, it pops right up. So you think you're gravy. When have you checked your friends' computers? The local library computer is one that's very similar to the typical consumer. Local hotels, these are people who have 2 to 3 year old computers, which is average, and this is where you want to check them, because if you get that bar, every time a client's looking for you, they're going to the next guy, and that's really important. So check your websites. PhotoBiz, just as a side note, I was concerned because they have a lot of Flash, but they have, I think, what is an embedded Flash or an embedded HTML or something to where it does not slow the sites down. So I'm sold. I will be making an awful lot of websites. Sorry about that, staff. Make sure you include a clear call to action, easy to find contact information, including your location. This one's the second biggest pet peeve in websites. If a client's looking for you and you work out of your home, I understand why you wouldn't want to put your home address. I get that. However, if you don't at least put the city you're in, you're making a big mistake. People will always assume you're far away if they have no choice. So at least if you give them a general range, they can make a decision. And they can say, okay, she's in Littleton, that's 20 miles, I can get there. So at least your location by city at a minimum, if not your address. Blogging, 77% of internet users read blogs. 60% of bloggers are between the ages of 18 and 44. That's your demographics correct. Corporate blogging only accounts for 14% of blogs. Now this is important because what this tells you is, I don't care how amazing a vacuum cleaner is, if Target goes online and tells this beautiful story about how smoothly this vacuum works, you are not going to emotionally connect to it. What we do is emotionally connective. People read our stories about that little girl in the field of wheat with the little white dress and the little, stroller pushing it through the field. You can bring people to their knees with that stuff, and it's powerful. So understand that blogging is a powerful tool. This is what people don't understand about blogging. Bloggers use an average of 5 social sites to drive people to their blog. If you're a great writer and you have a great blog and nobody's reading it, it's because you don't understand this. Because you don't understand, we use what we call pushers. Facebook, Twitter, there are lots of them out there, but those are pushers to us. What that means is Facebook is a tool that we use to push people. We give them a little tidbit and push them back to our blog for more information. And that's important. So you want to make sure that you understand, if you really want a good, successful blog, you need to be pushing people from all directions to get them there. Now, we do have a blog. You can check it out as well. It's attached to the sandypuch.com if you check it out. Twitter. Yeah, did you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to know, are you going through what the 5 are?
The 5.
The 5 social networks that you said you point to the blog?
That's exactly what we're going through right now. So nope, that's okay. Good question. So we'll cover them all. Twitter, there are 300,000 new users per day. There are currently 110 million users on Twitter. 60% of people on Twitter are outside of the United States. So that's good for you to know. But keep in mind, for those of us in the US, Twitter, for companies like Creative Live, is very effective because it's a marketing tool. But for companies like ours, portrait studios, how do we capture their names and tweet out to them and keep them active? So Twitter to me is not a strong marketing tool for a portrait studio. However, it is one of the pushers and we do use it. But I also know that there are 10 times more photographers that follow me than clients, and so there's balance there as well. The only thing I'll say about Twitter is, just like everything else, be careful what you say because you never know who's listening. I said something that I thought was funny. I tweeted something out, and it certainly wasn't inappropriate, but it was funny to me. My mother called me and was like, why would you say that? And I was like, why are you following me on Twitter? I didn't know that. So it was just one of those things. You just don't know. Be careful what you're doing. We do have, obviously, a Twitter feed, and you guys are welcome. We'd love to have you on there. It's Sandy Puch, so it's just SandyPuc, all one word. And we'd certainly love to have you following us if you're out there. We really enjoy keeping up with you. Facebook, now we're going to get exciting. There are 600 million users, and I'm sure that number's changed because that changes by the second. 700,000 new users join every single day. There are 25 billion pieces of content shared per month. That's just not even believable. But 1 million entrepreneurs and developers from 180 countries currently exist on Facebook. So what that tells you is Facebook is no longer a social media, a social site. It is a business tool. However, I'm coming with a strong warning for you. Facebook is an unsecure environment, and I'll tell you why. Number one, you all understand that when you put an image up there, you no longer own it, which is fine. What you don't understand is that they control everything. When Facebook first came out, I got very excited about it, and I'll tell you in a few minutes how I came about my Facebook journey. But I got a Facebook page, and I started sending out, like I was designing all these marketing campaigns that were, see us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, and I was putting money into getting people to see me on Facebook. Well, one day, I ended up getting thousands of people following me. One day, I go to Facebook to post something, my page is gone. Can't find it anywhere. And so I panic looking around thinking I pushed the wrong button, and I check around, can't find it. Well, after a while, I got some staff involved because I thought maybe I was just too dumb, and they start looking, can't find it. So we went on a mission to contact Facebook and actually get help. So we started looking for contact us or phone numbers, anything. We spent almost like 2 days looking for that information. And you know what? It turns out that actually nobody works for Facebook. There's actually nobody there. Because after 2 solid days of contacting us and pushing buttons and trying to find them, we never got a response. To this day, I have no idea where that site went. It disappeared and was gone forever. Now, I put a lot of money into getting those fans, and in a blink of an eye, they were all gone, and I lost them. And so what I'm telling you, when I say it's unsecure, it means you have no control. If they want to shut you down, they can do it tomorrow, and you just lost every contact you have. That's why more than anything in the world, we think that Facebook should be a pusher, because it's a great tool. Don't get me wrong, you absolutely should utilize it, but you should be pushing people off of it to your blog where you can capture their names and you can control when that goes on or off. Does that make sense? So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's a fantastic tool, but it's an unsecure tool. You don't own it, and it could go down tomorrow, and it's all gone. All that work you put into it is all gone, so keep that in mind. Facebook has 3 peak usage times: early morning, which is 7 a.m., after work, which is 5 p.m., and late at night. These are cool statistics. I'm a huge statistic fan because this is interesting if you're thinking about marketing. This is actually the life cycle of most of us now. I wake up in the morning, I check Facebook. I come home from work, I check Facebook. I go to bed, I'm editing, I check Facebook. It's almost every one of us. This little addicting cycle. Thursday and Fridays have an 18% higher engagement rate than the rest of the week. That's good to know, but there's something better to know. Wednesdays is the most important day of the week when it comes to business-specific posts. And we all understand why. Mondays and Tuesdays are the grind. Wednesdays is hump day, and Thursdays and Fridays, you're pretty much checking out. Wednesdays are literally when people are listening. So if you're only gonna post something once a week, make it on a Wednesday. And what time are you gonna post it? Well, exactly. Brands that post outside of business hours have a 20% higher engagement rate. I was dead wrong when I first started working on Facebook. I kept just harassing my employees saying, you've got to have it up by 9, 10 o'clock later. After that, nobody cares. I was dead wrong. 9, 10 o'clock, people are working. They're up early, they're up late. And that's when you should be posting these things if you want that content read. Now this one is the one that I want you to pay attention to. Posts that are 80 characters or less have a 27% higher engagement rate. That's a huge number. Now, the scary part is what you're looking at right here is just under 80 characters. I don't know about you, but when I post on Facebook, I have to write a saga. Like, I have to tell the whole story, and me and Facebook have an issue. We like get into fights because when you see that, you have posted over 420 characters. I just want to crawl through the machine and beat it. So understand that this one's hard for me. This is me preaching to the choir here, I think, because honestly, I struggle with this. But when you see a number like 27%, that's a big number in statistics, and you have to understand that you have to teach yourself to do this. So if you have something important to say, this becomes a pusher. This is where you say, a funny thing happened on the way to work, ... click here and get more. So that pushes them, they go, what's that? And they go right to your blog. Does that make sense? So important statistics there. YouTube, there are 2 million viewers per day. Go ahead.
Sorry, quick question.
It's okay. I'm just running out of time.
I know. For the time zones, because if you have businesses that are in multiple time zones, 7 a.m., 5 p.m.
It equates to your time zone.
But I mean, say you have Creative Live, we have people all over the world. Do you account for that?
Well, obviously, the majority of your clients, in your case, your clients are all over the world. So you could equate for it. Just send a text out every 2 minutes and you'll be fine. So in our case, our clients are typically our community, our time zone.
That's true.
So it's one of those that, depending on your type of business, you'd have to modify that tool. But there's a fine line between harassing the heck out of people and marketing. So you have to do that. Okay, YouTube, 2 million viewers per day. The US accounts for 70%, so that's a good thing. However, unfortunately, over half of them are under 20 years old, so they are not your demographic. However, which demographic are they? High school seniors, right? There's a huge market there. So what that tells you is Your YouTube site should be full of things that appeal to that age. Now, this generation is known as the millennial generation. They are born between 1982 and 2002, and man, those are some good-looking kids there, I gotta tell you. I didn't even know that slide went in there. They are cute. They are Generation Y. Now, this is a really interesting group because they are geniuses, literally. I'm not speaking about my children. I might be, but I'm speaking about this generation. It's the most incredible generation in the world because, for instance, I watched my youngest son. He's a video game. They're both gamers. They like to play, and I had an extra projector, so I took a wall this big and made an entire gaming room. And I only have 5 minutes, but I do want to tell you the story because it's an interesting theory. He can sit there and he actually has a headset on and he has 4 games going up. These are like world domination, destroy the universe kind of thing. He's playing 4 games in a row all at the same time. Now, he is also talking on a headset to people all over the world. Meanwhile, there are pop-up windows and people are talking to him, like writing. People that don't have headsets are writing to him. He is typing like this and he's literally destroying 4 universes and he's typing 1,000 miles an hour. Now, I want you to understand, he's 13 years old. Do you guys remember typing in high school? We were like this. And these kids are like this. They are unbelievable how tactile and what they can do. So meanwhile, he's answering questions, he's destroying universes, he's talking other thing, and there are pop-up windows with advertisements coming up, and he's shutting them down too. Now, these kids are thinking 1,000 miles an hour. This generation is your future. In less than 5 years, these are your future parents, honestly. Some of them are already going into this phase, and some of them are a little younger. But understand, this is 10 years marketing from now. These are the people you're going to be marketing to. How do you market to somebody that thinks like this and shuts down pop-ups? How do you pop up in their life and matter to them? This is your future, and you have to understand it. So these social media aspects that we've talked about, you have to understand them because these are the geniuses that are out there. Now, they're an incredibly intelligent generation, but there's some things that absolutely fascinate me about them as well. Because, for instance, phones. You know, in the United States, typical child has just 8 and over has a phone. Do you know most children under the age of 9 do not recognize what a phone booth is for? They would not know that you could put money in it to make a phone call. You want to know a scary one? I took my son to school a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, and pulled up, and I got out of the car, he got out of the car, and he had 3 friends in the back seat of the car. And all of a sudden, one's knocking on the window, and he was saying, Miss Putsch, can you open the door? I can't get out. And I literally stood there and I bent down and I said, hey, sweetie, see that little button right there? If you pull that up, you can get out all by yourself. I said, it's manual labor, but it can be done. You know, and it was really funny to me, but then it's kind of scary too, because if you think about children, we live in such an automatic world. Not one of those 3 children knew how to get out of a door just by themselves. They were knocking to get out. So I always think worst case scenario, an emergency or something, do children really understand how things work? Because we're just used to things just happening for us. So keep in mind, they are an incredible generation. They're super smart, but they are also your future marketing generation as well. If you want to reach them, you have to get online. You're going to have to know this stuff. A website's not enough. You've got to use all of those pushers, all of those social sites. These kids, this group looks towards their peers to make decisions, and it is not a personal contact. My daughter is 12, has a cell phone. I've seen her use it 2 times, actually use it as a phone 2 times. She's a texter. They don't speak to each other. So it's a very different type of media. The reason it is years of advertisement bombardment has just overwhelmed all of us, and people want a social connection, but to them, social connection is very different than what we think. It is not necessarily face-to-face. Real quickly, and then we'll wrap up. LinkedIn, there are members from over 200 countries. There's a new member that joins LinkedIn every second. This is one of those, when I saw it, I went, oh great, another social media site, kill me now. But this is what I saw that changed my mind. I was reading an article, and it said executives from every single Fortune 500 company are members of LinkedIn, every single one. So what that tells you is they know something. These guys are very powerful, very smart, and very wealthy. If they're using LinkedIn, there's something there. Now, I don't have a lot of time to explain it, but it is a network. It's basically a linking service. You attach yourself to somebody, you can then attach yourself to their friends. Different than Facebook, though, because you can't just go friend everybody. If you over-friend, so to speak, they'll shut you down, and you have to have personal information about that person before you can move on. So use it. Learn about it before you get too crazy on it. Important. We live in a mobile world. Mobile device users are twice as active as non-mobile device users. So that's something to consider when you're doing business. Half of your clients are going to find you on a phone. Have you checked your website on your phone recently? Do you know that it's fast? Do you get that bar? Do they have to scroll left and right to look at it? Because you lost them if they do. So check your phones just as much. What does all this mean? We're going to wrap it up. Social media is evolving. It's no longer just a place to hang out. It's a new platform for communication and information sharing. Now, I'm going to be done in about 4 minutes, but I do want to tell you my social media changeover because when Facebook first came out, I was anti-Facebook. I thought it was like the worst use of time ever. I had a very interesting experience. I went to China teaching, and unfortunately when we got there, somebody on the plane had the H1N1 virus, and we were actually able to leave the plane, and then they came and picked us up at our hotel room and took us to quarantine. We were supposed to be in China for 14 days. Quarantine was 8 to 10 days is what they were telling us. The long and short of it is this. First of all, I would like to say that China is absolutely my favorite country in the world. So what I'm about to tell you, I harbor no ill will. However, we were taken from our hotel rooms, driven about 2.5 hours through the night, and we arrived at what appeared to be a hotel. Big gates, police cars, metal fences, barbed wire. They opened the gates, pulled in. There was no electricity at the time, flashlights. Everybody was in a hazmat suit. So you have to imagine, just that alone is so overwhelming that it's unbelievable. So hazmat suits, nobody speaks English. I had my 2 oldest children, then 15 and 16 years old. We were very frightened, 110 degrees in the back of this ambulance. It was very scary. We pulled up, they took us upstairs. They put us in a room, and I went to this was 3 o'clock in the morning at this point. We went to walk in, and they stopped me, and nobody spoke English, but they signaled that my children were going to have to go with them. And of course, at that moment, I had a panic attack. I thought, no, that's not going to happen. And so I put my hands up in the doorway, and I'm like, no. And I tried to communicate, but they were very adamant that the children had to go with them because everybody had to be separated. I argued for several hours, and police started to come, and I could see I was well outnumbered, and I was at this point, the difference between my son and daughter, my oldest son's just cracking jokes the whole time. He's just like me. He thinks this is the funniest thing ever. My daughter does not handle stress very well. She, at this point, had been crying the whole time, but at this point, she is literally physically holding a bed, screaming, "Mom, please don't let them take me. Please don't let them take me. Please don't let them take me." So you can imagine there was a lot of trauma going on. So what does this have to do with Facebook? It's coming. So at around, this is late hours of the night, my oldest son looks at me and finally says, "Mom, if I go with them, do you think they'll just let you keep Katie? I don't care. Just let me go to sleep." I quickly assessed how many there were there, and I looked at him, and I looked at them, and I finally signaled, I said, "Okay, if you take him, can I keep her?" And of course, I think they were so afraid of her at that point. They were so happy. They were like, "Yes." And they took his little arm, and they walked out the door, and they shut the door, and these were alarmed doors, and he was gone. Now, you can imagine that the second they shut the door and I realized what I had just agreed to, I lost it. I just could not believe I had let somebody take my child in a foreign country that I didn't know where he was going, and I completely fell apart. I actually got my daughter to sleep, and then I lost it. I cried straight through the night. Now, in the morning, I decided to take a risk, and I went to the door, and I knew it was alarmed. I could see it was alarmed, but I opened it up, and an alarm went off. And of course, hazmat suits come running and trying to push me back in the door. Well, it caused some more doors to open up, and an American was across the door, and I started asking him, "Have you seen a boy? When did you come in? Have you seen him?" And a couple more doors opened, and we kind of started this little revival. And I asked, there were 9 Americans and 1 Chinese citizen, and I asked them if they would basically refused to shut their doors until I found my son. And so, of course, this was pretty dramatic, but eventually the Chinese government officials gave up because we just all refused. So we made little offices in our doorways, and we set up shop there, and we just talked throughout the day. And of course, by the time lunch rolled around, there wasn't a lunch, by the way, but by the time the afternoon rolled around, I was pretty upset. Now this has been hours. I could only imagine how traumatized my son must be at that point, by himself, locked up in a room. And you have to understand, these are not rooms like you're thinking. When I walked in, my first fear was the 10,000 mosquitoes. That was the least of the problems. We had bed bugs so bad. We came home with literally no calves. We were so shredded. And that was still the least of the problem for my daughter because the floor moved at all times. There were so many mice that it was just constant movement. So it was a very traumatic situation. Around 1 o'clock, and I'll finish with this. I'm sitting there in this doorway. Nobody's speaking anymore. Everybody is literally in shock, and we're sitting there, and right in front of me is a door that has not opened. I assume nobody was in there. Well, around 1 o'clock, the door opens, the alarm goes off. I literally look up like this, and it's my son. And my heart almost jumped out of my body. I stood up and I said, Alec, and I started to cry. And I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm so sorry. Let them take you. And he is looking down the hall going, Mom, knock it off. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Are you upset? I'm so sorry. And I'm crying and I'm making this big, and everybody's looking and they can see I finally found my son. And he's like, Mom, knock it off. And I'm like, I finally look at him and I said, what have you been doing? And he looks at me and goes, I've been on the internet. Now, think about this. There are 9 adults that are basically in prison. We're depressed like you'd never believe, and only the child in the environment actually thinks to look for the internet. He had actually gone on his laptop, and for whatever reason, we have no food, no water, and being eaten alive, we had Wi-Fi. So go figure. So as soon as he says this, everyone's looking at each other going, are you kidding me? I mean, we couldn't even communicate with anybody. So everybody, of course, grabs their laptops. And for like 8 days straight, you had 9 Americans sitting there with laptops in a doorway, communicating with the world. This was my first use of Facebook. In China, you can't get everything, but for whatever reason, I could get Facebook. I literally went on and say, hey, by the way, I'm quarantined. Somebody say something to me. That is how I contacted my family, my children, my staff. When I went to China, I had about 300 or 400 friends on Facebook. When I left China, I had over 5,000, I had hit my 5,000 max, and I had created this incredible universe. And for all those days, I can assure you that it was those people, and every second I was getting a, hang in there, you're gonna make it, it's gonna be okay. And I swear to you, it became the most emotional thing I've ever been through. So the point is, my experience was a little different, but I learned the power of social media. I understand how it affects people emotionally. And so these are tools that we've been given, and they work. They're very powerful. It's just understanding and unleashing and harnessing that powers.